All right. Hey, good morning. It's Wednesday, right? Yeah. So, man, we had some storms last night. Came through our place. I think came through the south. I think, but man, it felt like it hovered over our house for a minute, and the rain was hard. And but everything's good. So power went out, and rain fell, lightning, thunder sounded good, and here we are. So it was good. It was good. Last night we had, man, kind of a night off, so that was that was fun and interesting. We did a little studying, and then we settled in, and watched a movie, probably one of the better Christmas movies we've seen so far this year. It was on Netflix, I think. The Noel Diary, maybe, or something, Journal, or something like that. Anyway, it was a good movie. I like movies that kind of make you think after the movie's over, just about life and people and just everything. And so it was good. And so anyway, enough of that. We are in John chapter 5, and man, things are getting heated. And so this is the beginning uh, of confrontations, several that Jesus will have with the Jews, the Jewish leaders. John shortens that to just the Jews. He's not referring to the whole nation when he says the Jews, but to these ruling leaders of the Jews. And so we looked yesterday at that incredible aspect of the healing at the pool of Bethesda, excuse me. And man, it was powerful, right? We saw what he did. He healed, and then they get upset. The Jews do, trying to say, okay, why are you carrying your mat after the guy gets healed? So we saw all of that. We saw a guy that really, even though he had to have seen the consternation, the one who was healed, from the face of the Jews trying to figure out what's going on. And so then when Jesus comes and finds him and they reconnect, and he says, hey, stop sinning so that something worse doesn't happen to you, he immediately goes and tells the Jews, oh, it was Jesus. I don't know what that says. What I think it says is that he didn't become a rapid follower of Christ. And maybe somewhere down the line he did. But remember, I mean, there's many, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and narrow is the way, and few are they who find it. So I'm just going to remind us that at the end of this very vast and public ministry to a few million people, there's only 120 that have really gathered seriously praying after Jesus has died and then resurrected. So enough about that. Let's look at this, because here is the response. So we get to verse 15 in John chapter 5, and it says, the man went away and informed of the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. Verse 16, very telling. For this reason, the Jews were persecuting, present tense, that's continual action. We're going to be continually harassing Jesus from this point forward, right? For this reason, the Jews were persecuting Jesus because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. This was their big issue. It was the Sabbath. That because that is the kind of their baby. That's where they get to go and spend the whole days kind of harassing everybody for what are you doing outside of your house at this point, this far away, all of these issues. It's psychotic what they had done. They had taken the Sabbath, which was just a commandment that simply said, 6 days you work, seventh day you rest as unto the Lord. And so in that process, they over years had amassed and answering after their philosophical meanderings, right? Then they determined, well, you can do this on the Sabbath, you can't do that on the Sabbath, you can do. They began to speak outside of what God had said because people were coming to them, hey, is it lawful to do this? Can I do this? And so in their power trip, they've now created, I think, something around 40, maybe more laws of the Sabbath that you had to keep and how you had to do it. They were silly things from you could carry something but not over your head. That was kind of work thing. There were things that you could travel, but not so far outside of your home. And the way they would get around that is they would take a rock from their house. They would get there however many paces they could get from their home before it moved into work. drop that there on the ground, and then now that's home. I mean, so it was just this silly concoction of things, which was meant simply to be a day of rest that would honor the Lord, that was good and healthy for people. It created a trust that we don't have to work every day. We can trust that if we do this 7th Sabbath rest, that the Lord will take care of us. That also spilled over into the year of Jubilee, which was every 7 years. Your debt was paid. The land would lay dormant as it was given a chance to rest. And so there would be all of these principles, our principles of a bankruptcy, where you can bankrupt that every 7 years, comes from those biblical principles of the Sabbath in the broader context, not just a day, but what this concept of rest looks like. Enough of that. So now we're going to get Jesus' own testimony. It says, for this reason, the Jews were persecuting Jesus because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. That's their big deal. Now, Jesus has already shown up. He's cleansed the temple, called it his Father's house, and he had done many, many signs, right? That's what the scriptures speak of. So all that's going on. In fact, that's why the crowds began to well up, because they had seen the signs, the works that he had done. He went to Nicodemus, had come to him, the teacher of the Jews, like the big dog. And so I'm sure the winds of gossip had stirred, and they're like, "Hey, man, I don't know, sure, Nick, it seems changing. I don't know what's going on, but he's not that firebrand, right? I mean, he's not really all on board with that. You can assume that that's going on, because we do know that Nicodemus comes to Christ. Did he the night that he spoke with Jesus? We don't know. Then he went, then he went through Samaria. Which stirred them up as well. In fact, at some point down the road, they're going to call him a Samaritan, which is a terrible name to call him. They get so mad at Jesus, go, well, you're Samaritan. And so these are all these little nuances that are going into this statement in verse 16, right? The royal official, everyone had heard that the royal official's son was healed. And so, he's kind of permeated now into Herod's domain. And now he's healed on the Sabbath. So for this reason, the Jews are persecuting him. So it's all of these little tidbits out there, and they begin to mingle and mungle among themselves and talk about these things. And because of this Sabbath thing, they're like, "That's it. We're done. Let's just." Now they haven't decided to kill him yet, but they are going to harass him. Now, Jesus responds directly, and if this is the clearest statement that you're going to find in the scriptures, where Jesus says, I and the Father are equal. We are God. Now, he will say this over and over, but this little section here from his own mouth, and this is what John's purpose is, right? I write these things have been written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and by believing in his name, you have life. Now, he's writing that. So this is his testimony. These are his cases. So we've heard from, all of these others. Now we're hearing out of the words of Jesus himself. Who does he say he is? And we're going to see already, I mean, if we haven't yet, he is Lord of creation. He changed water into wine. And John, in the very beginning of his letter, our gospel rather, says that in him all things were created. So he's Lord over creation. He's Lord over the temple. He went in, calls it my Father's house, tears it up, gets rid of all of the people who were doing thievery in there and all kind of shenanigans. So he's Lord of the temple, the Lord's house. He's Lord over sickness because he just healed the man. And now he's Lord of the Sabbath. This is what he's going to say. So he's tearing down all of these sanctimonious things that the Pharisees have. Now I want you to feel that ire and anger and angst coming out from them, because he's knocking down their little power trip. This little pedestal that they have put themselves on, he's systematically knocking them down. And so the Jewish leaders were framing their opposition to that, right? And we already mentioned the fact that he called him a Samaritan. They also will call him later, this is all out of John, I think, demonized. They're going to say he's just demonized. Then they're going to say he's insane, he's mad, he's crazy. Then they're going to say that he's an illegitimate child. They're going to drag up the fact of the rumors of Joseph and Mary. And they're going to call him that. And then they're going to call him a blasphemer. These are the things that they say to him. So to quote C.S. Lewis, he is either a liar, a lunatic, or he really is who he says he is. This is that confrontation. So, Sabbath simply meant rest, right? A day to rest, to trust in the Lord, a day to honor God. And they had messed this whole thing up. Now, listen to what he says in verse 17. But he answered them, right? So apparently, after the man healed came to the Jews, well, they went and found him, right? Or Jesus went and found them. However it happened, there's a confrontation face to face. But he answered them, my Father is working until now. I myself am working. Now, they're like, you don't work on the Sabbath. And so this is his great statement. God is always at work. Right? Now we say, well, wait a minute, God rested, he worked 6 days and he rested. Yeah, but you think he rested from everything, or would the stars have fallen from the sky? Would the earth have quit spinning? Would all of the things that God does to hold the universe together? He didn't stop working in the way that they want to translate him working. In fact, the scriptures, just a quick observation of this. He works for you while you wait for him. He neither sleeps nor he slumbers. He doesn't faint nor does he grow weary. We know that he works. And Jesus here is telling us, my Father's working until now. My Father's working on the Sabbath as well. And I myself am working. Now, that statement, no one ever calls God my Father, our Father who art in heaven, our Father, then they rarely call him Father. They mostly call him the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But here, because he says this, they then, verse 18, for this reason, therefore, the Jews were seeking all the more to kill him. First they wanted to persecute him, now they're like, nope, we're going to kill him. He just said that he and the Father, he calls him my Father, right? And so this just creates all kind of angst in their own mind. It says they're going to kill him because he not only was breaking the Sabbath, but also was calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God. Now, the whole mass of scholars can say, well, Jesus never claimed to be God, yada, yada, yada. You then are ignorant of Jewish metaphor, Jewish culture, Jewish language, and how it all works. Because they clearly, in that one statement that he says, my Father is working until now, and I myself am working. I am just like him. He's going to go further, but this is his first statement, and it says this, because he was making himself equal with God. They were saying he was God. Right? So this is the issue. He claimed to be equal with God. This is it. Now, verse 19. We're only going to get 2 verses, so we're almost done. Therefore, Jesus answered and was saying to them, truly, truly. Now, remember when he said that to Nicodemus? Truly, truly. What he's saying is, let me give you verifiable truth. Let me give you solid, rock solid truth for you to hang your hat on. Let me give you a peg in the wall so you have something to hold on to, right? This is when he uses that term, truly, truly, this is what he's saying. So there's no question in their mind that he just said he was equal with God. Now he says, truly, truly, which translates to them, hey, big truth is coming. Truly, truly, I say to them, the Son can do nothing of himself unless it is something he sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, these things the Son does also in the very same way. Bam. That's a hard hit right there. Let's kind of break that down and see what he says. Jesus is tying himself to God. He says, I'm not some rogue agent, some freewheeling radical out there. I can't do anything on my own. Me and the Father are interdependent. This is what he says. Listen, I'm going to read it again. I'm saying what he says, right? The Son can do nothing of himself. I can't be this rogue guy out here. I can't just go do what I want to. You think I'm rebelling against God. You're only seeing that you have rebelled, and I'm pointing that fact out by bringing truth to reality of exactly what it is. And so he says, the Son can do nothing of himself unless it is something he sees the Father doing. So he's saying, one, I can't act independently of God. And two, I can only do the things that God does. I do because I am God. In the same way, I do only what God does. In the same way. That's the force of the language there. In the same way. Now, so clearly, he is making this case. I am God. We get to verse 20, and he says, why is the reason of that? For the Father loves the Son and shows him all things that he himself is doing. So what's he saying? Hey, and God loves me. Why is this? For the Father, why is it that Jesus can't do anything on his own, and why he has to do what God is doing? Because the Father loves the Son and shows himself all things. Listen, I have an inside track. God has no secrets with me. Right? Now, that was a philosophical question that Jews would always meander about and talk about over the course of things. You know, what are those secret things? How many angels can sit on the head of a pin? I mean, all these kind of crazy things that they would come up and talk about. And Jesus going, oh, and hey, by the way, me and God, no secrets. He shows me everything. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all things that he himself is doing. So, he knows all. God has no secrets. Now, Paul says it like this in Colossians 2. It says, all the fullness of God dwells in him. And then he goes on in Colossians and he says, in Christ are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. Everything, whatever God is, it has been encased in the flesh of Jesus and it dwells among us. In him, in the flesh of Jesus, all the fullness of God dwelt. And all the knowledge and wisdom and treasures that brings are in him as well. Like he is the walking visible evidence of God himself. This is what he's saying. It's undeniable. It's just right there. Now, listen to what he says though. And the Father's just getting started. So we'll look at this phrase and we'll be done. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all things that he himself is doing, and the Father will show him greater works than these, so that you ain't seen nothing yet. That's basically what he's saying. So that you will be amazed. The Father's just getting started. You will see God in Christ doing greater works than just healing on the Sabbath or taking charge of the house of the Lord, the temple, or turning water into wine. And he's going to give us a glimpse, and we'll come back to this tomorrow in verse 21. For just as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, so do I give life to whoever I wish. Wow. Whoever you wish. You're just saying that you have charge over life itself. Absolutely. Man, it's going to get worse. We're not done yet. This is the rest of this chapter, is just hearing Jesus wax eloquent and just in the face of the Pharisees saying, I'm your worst nightmare. I'm God in the flesh. And I'm going to straighten out what you have messed up. That's all we got time for today. Man, Lord bless you guys. Man, I can't wait to share some more of this with you in the morning. This is crazy stuff. And we'll look at it in the morning. You guys have a great day. And Lord willing, I'll see you in the morning.